What's up everyone, welcome to today's video, welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So I decided to go ahead and fire up the Arkham Knight game. After playing a few hours of Gotham Knights, well, compared to Arkham anyways, I'm close to about 40 hours in Gotham Knights. And I've been working on the combat, trying to master all the different characters. They are very distinct in the way that they play, and so you must understand that. I heard someone who did give an opinion piece about Gotham Knights and said that the combat was like an MMO game and there didn't seem to be any distinctives between the four characters. Well, those of you who've been playing the game, you know that that could not be further from the truth. In fact, some of you are not capable of even wanting to try some of the other characters because they don't even suit your playstyle and you're drawn to some other characters. So this already is obvious because in the game, all the characters, they play and fight differently. In fact, animations are different because they're build-up animations and they're different for different characters. Their special abilities have different frame data, and so you as the player, you kind of get to learn and understand the way the system goes. Anyways, I fired up Arkham Knight and I started to play and, basically go back to the free flow counter system. And the truth of the matter is I like Arkham Combat, but I thought that I would actually prefer Arkham Combat to Gotham Knights Combat. But the reality is I don't prefer anyone over the other. To me, both of them are so distinct that I can pretty much tell, in my opinion, what both were going for. Especially having listened over the years to, Stephen Hill, who is the director of the Arkham games, basically the creator of the Arkham games, and talk about their philosophy of building that combat. I've seen a lot of people go out there and say, oh, it just made me want to go back to the Arkham games and play that again. And sure, there's nothing wrong with that. I can tell you that the Arkham combat, I've studied it like crazy. In my opinion, based on what the Arkham combat is designed to be a rhythmic combat and a combat that makes you feel very strong right off the bat. That way you can pretty much easily start to tap your attack button and your counter button, and you can feel like you're in a comic book where Batman is going to overpower almost everyone. That's the way the designers wanted that combat to feel like. They were making this new Batman game and they wanted everyone to be able to easily resonate with exactly what it was that they were trying to achieve with their combat system. Now keep in mind that that combat system is also designed to continue to move over and over into much more difficult territory as you face different enemy types, and as your counter button used to always help you with the basic enemies, you now had to use counter abilities. So the Arkham games put you in a position where for the most part you were playing as an offensive, player the moment you first started, but then you eventually moved on to a defensive side of things, and then you started to mix it up as you gained balance. That's the entire Arkham combat. You learn basically the enemy types, you learn what you can do with and to the enemy types, you learn how to disable the enemy types and reduce and break them down to regular enemy NPCs, example, enemies that have a knife, or enemies that have a shock baton, or enemies that have been actually given a shock vest. These enemies all require different quick abilities that you have to apply to take them all down. In the case of Gotham Knights, what you have here is an RPG-based combat system that is actually designed for that kind of a progression. So you, as your character, you can basically use your heavy and light attacks like you have in many RPG games like God of War, you have it in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, you have it in the Assassin's Creed games, and this is basically what Gotham Knights is bringing to the table. But deep down, hidden beneath the Gotham Knights combat, are little tricks and little tactics that eventually start to deepen your combat abilities, like your perfect strikes. This is when you're able to perfectly time how you hit your attack button, your light attack button, and how you actually use your heavy attacks in conjunction with your light attacks. And the crazy thing about this combat system is they didn't separate the light attack and the heavy attack. Instead, they use the same button, but your input on the same button is actually what differentiates it. I think this provides a depth of tactile precision that you have to master and it gives the game an entirely different feel. That's the beauty of the Gotham Knights combat, because if you mistap or mispress, you'll notice that, yo, I just dropped my combo. But if you get it right, the satisfaction is right there, because you see enemy NPCs basically react to it. In fact, your hitbox can also grow once you actually land a perfectly timed strike. Another element, and this is on the basic level, are your perfect dodges. The perfect dodges are opening of windows in a combat where enemy NPCs are going to be intermittently attacking you. And if you want to open them up, you have to dodge at the right time. Now, there are many games that also implement this as well. Examples of video games that do that and even reward that are games like Assassin's Creed, let's say the Odyssey or maybe Valhalla. And if you're able to dodge very well, maybe almost a perfect dodge, you can gain some slowing down in Assassin's Creed, whereas in Gotham Knights, it grants you, say, momentum abilities and also opens up the enemy NPCs for attacks, depending on how the enemy NPC is structured. So when you look at all of this stuff, it is pretty much, in my opinion, showing that both combat systems are just very different. Is one better than the other? In my opinion, no. And I've played hours and hours and hours of Arkham Knight. I have 300 plus hours in Arkham Knight. It only took about, maybe 70 hours to beat the game 240%. So I've literally been dumping, say, over 100 hours or so on the combat itself. And I can tell you from my own experience that that combat is good, but I don't see it as being superior than the, Gotham Knights combat. And I don't see the Gotham Knights combat being superior to Arkham, because even some people here in the community are saying that, to them, they prefer the Arkham combat over the Gotham Knights, or the Gotham Knights combat over Arkham combat, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, they're both different. And then with Gotham Knights, as you're eventually progressing and going on and on, you eventually start to deal with all of the different, areas of your RPG elements. And then this is an entirely different area of combat, and you actually see it. And your knight, even though you thought your knight was kind of powerful when you started the game, you eventually see how powerful you can become. And then that's where the power fantasy creep comes in. Usually RPG games provide that power, creep, and you can start to eventually get stronger and stronger. And if you go to enemies that are of low level, you slap them. Even bosses, they take a beating from you as you start getting stronger. So I think what Gotham Knights has done with this combat system is it's just made itself a solid combat. Nothing insane, nothing revolutionary, but just making a good, pure combat system that people can get around. And what even makes it better is each of the knights play that combat system distinctively enough that when you pick any of them up, you'll eventually start to notice the differences, and then eventually help you to kind of like hone your own play style. And I think it kind of bonds you in an interesting way to each of the knights. It's so weird and it's so good. I think these guys kind of had an idea what it is that they wanted to do. And these video game studios, they do focus group testing. So I'm sure when the focus groups were first playing this, idea, they were kind of skeptical. It was almost the same thing with God of War. God of War, there was a lot of skepticism even within the focus groups. But then once they launched the game and everybody started to play it, it was like, yo, this is something that's actually pretty cool. And so combat systems, in my opinion, and the designs just have to be taken at, face value for exactly the kind that they are. And Arkham is still going to maintain a solid spot, but let's not be biased here and then just go throw Arkham on top when it is entirely a different combat system. Some may like it over some other combat systems, no problem, but you cannot definitively say that it is an entirely, better combat system. And that's because your combat system is fundamentally designed to complement your game. So that's pretty much my spiel for now. So thanks for listening to the video and for watching. I really appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.